She saved a native elder from shame, and the very next day her fate was in the hands of an Apache warrior. But what she discovered in that sacred moment would unleash a chain of events so shocking it would reveal ancient secrets, forbidden love, and a betrayal that would shake two worlds forever. Before we begin this story, tell me in the comments what part of the world you're watching from, and if you too believe that sometimes the most dangerous thing a woman can do is show mercy to the wrong person. The bells of Mesilla Creek had just finished their morning prayer when Elena Cartwright made a decision that would change everything. The year was 1867, and in the harsh territories of New Mexico, compassion was often considered a luxury few could afford. Elena was 24, with autumn wheat hair and mountain stream blue eyes. She had fled to this frontier town 2 years earlier, escaping a past that haunted her dreams, and a marriage that had died with her husband in the Civil War. Now she taught school, living on the edge of civilization where white settlement gave way to dangerous Apache territory. That October morning, as she walked toward the schoolhouse, cruel laughter echoed from the town square. Elena's heart pounded as she reached the square and saw an elderly Apache man kneeling in the center, surrounded by jeering townspeople. His gray hair hung around his weathered face, his traditional clothing torn and dirty. But what broke Elena's heart was the deep shame burning in his dark eyes. "Look at the old savage now," shouted Tom Bradley, the blacksmith. "Not so mighty without your war paint." The elderly Apache remained silent, trembling not from fear but from the tremendous effort to control his rage. Elena noticed his lips moving in silent prayer, and something noble about his quiet dignity made the crowd's cruelty even more despicable. "What's he even doing here?" demanded Sheriff Hayes, probably scouting for his warrior friends. But Elena saw what others missed. Clutched in his weathered hands was a small bundle, dried corn, precious coins, and a child's worn moccasin. Her teacher's instincts suddenly made everything clear. This wasn't a scout. This was a desperate grandfather trying to trade for something precious. "Please," the elder whispered, "my granddaughter, she is sick. I have little, but I will trade." Sheriff Hayes kicked dirt in his direction. "Get out before I decide you're a threat." That's when Elena stepped forward, placing herself between the crowd and the kneeling elder. "Stop this right now." The crowd fell silent, shocked. Elena felt every judgmental eye upon her, but when she saw hope replace shame in the old man's eyes, she knew there was no turning back. But little did Elena know, from the desert hills surrounding town, another pair of eyes had been watching, eyes belonging to someone who would soon hold her very life in his powerful hands. "Miss Cartwright," Sheriff Hayes warned, "you need to move away from that savage." "He's not a savage," Eleanor replied steadily. "He's someone's grandfather." She knelt beside the elder, seeing past weathered skin to universal love. "What does your granddaughter need?" she asked softly in Spanish. His eyes widened in surprise. "Medicina. She burns with fever. The spirits, they are calling her home." Eleanor's heart clenched. Without proper medicine, the child could die. "Dr. Morrison," she called out, "this child needs medicine." The crowd began murmuring angrily, but Pastor Williams stepped forward. "The Lord commanded us to heal the sick. He made no exceptions for race." The elderly Apache slowly rose, reaching into his bundle to withdraw something that made Eleanor's breath catch. A small silver cross worn smooth by years of handling. "My granddaughter," he said in halting English, holding up the cross. "She was baptized. She believes in your God too." The revelation rippled through the crowd. Dr. Morrison looked troubled. "If the child has been baptized," Elena made her decision, pulling out her small purse. "I'll pay for the medicine myself." As they walked across the square, Elena felt the weight of stares burning into her back. Some filled with admiration, others blazing with anger at what they saw as betrayal. High on the ridge, Nahale, known as Forest Walker, had witnessed every moment. Watching a white woman risk everything to save his grandfather and beloved niece, something shifted in his heart that would change both their destinies forever. 3 days passed and Mesilla Creek settled into uneasy tension. Elena tried maintaining her routine, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Some townspeople looked at her with suspicion instead of respect. Just past sunset, Elena heard the soft whistle of an Apache signal from her garden. Through her window, she saw a shadow moving between cottonwood trees, tall, powerful, moving with silent grace. Against every instinct screaming danger, Elena walked to her front door, and opened it. Standing 20 feet away was the most magnificent and terrifying man she had ever seen. Tall and powerfully built, with long black hair gleaming in moonlight and skin like burnished copper. He wore traditional Apache clothing, but what captured her attention were his eyes, dark as night, intense as flame. "You are the woman who helped my grandfather," he said, his English perfect though accented. Elena's mouth went dry. "Is your granddaughter well?" Surprise flickered across his features. "She lives. The fever broke yesterday." Relief flooded through Elena. "Thank God." "My grandfather told me what you did," Nahal continued, taking a step closer. "You risked much. In my culture, such kindness creates a debt that must be repaid." "No debt," Elena shook her head. "I did what anyone with a heart should do." "But not what anyone would do," he corrected. "You are different. In 3 days there will be a new moon," he said seriously. "Riders will come to this town, men filled with hatred seeking revenge. They believe all white settlers are cruel, deserving only death." Elena felt ice form in her veins. "Are you warning me or threatening me?" "Offering you a choice. You showed mercy to one of ours. I offer to show mercy to you. When the riders come, I can ensure your safety." Elena's mind raced. Accept his protection and become complicit with raiders. Refuse and likely die herself. "I need time to think." "You have until tomorrow night. Meet me at the old oak by the creek if you accept my protection." As he turned to leave, Elena called desperately. "What's your name?" "Nahale, forest walker. And you?" "Elena Cartwright." "Choose wisely, Elena Cartwright." He vanished into shadows, leaving Elena trembling with the knowledge that her simple act of kindness had bound her fate to one of the most dangerous men she could imagine. Elena spent the night pacing, torn between impossible choices. How could she accept protection from raiders who would slaughter innocents? Yet how could she refuse and guarantee her own death? The next evening, she walked slowly toward the old oak tree. She had made her choice, though she wasn't sure what it meant. Nahale was waiting in the shadows. "I didn't think you would come. I can't bear the thought of innocent people dying when I might prevent it." "You think you can change what is coming?" "I have to try." Something shifted in Nahale's expression, a crack revealing the man beneath the warrior. "You are either very brave or very foolish." "Probably both," Elena admitted, surprised to see the ghost of a smile cross his features. "The war party will arrive tomorrow night. 27 warriors led by my cousin Mangus. They seek vengeance for Sand Creek, where soldiers killed women and children under a flag of truce." Elena felt sick. "Can you stop them?" "I can influence their choices, guide them away from certain targets." His eyes met hers. "Guide them away from you." "The schoolhouse," Elena said desperately. "There are children in town. Could you make sure they spare the children?" "You ask much. To interfere too obviously would mark me as a traitor. But you'll try." Nahale looked at this extraordinary woman pleading for others and felt something stir in his chest he'd never experienced. "I will try, but there are no guarantees." As she turned to leave, Nahale called softly, "Why did you really come tonight?" Elena paused. "Because when I looked into your eyes, I didn't see an enemy. I saw someone who understood what it means to love something more than your own life." Her words hung between them, like a bridge spanning an impossible chasm, and both felt something shift that would soon transform into something far more dangerous and beautiful. The next day dawned with ominous stillness. Elena went through her routine, but every moment felt surreal. By mid-afternoon, most families had evacuated, leaving behind men determined to fight and women too stubborn to flee. She was organizing medical supplies when angry voices approached. "I tell you, I saw her!" Tom Bradley burst through the door with Sheriff Hayes and others. "Walking toward the creek last night." Elena rose slowly. "Gentlemen, how can I help you?" "You can explain where you went after dark," Sheriff Hayes said, hand on his gun. "Tom says he saw you heading toward Apache territory. I went for a walk to clear my head." "At night? When we're expecting a raid?" demanded Joe Martinez. "What kind of fool walks alone in the dark?" "The kind who refuses to let fear control her life." Tom Bradley stepped closer. "Or the kind passing information to the enemy." "How dare you suggest such a thing?" Sheriff Hayes pulled out a piece of blue fabric. "Found this caught on thorns where we discovered Apache tracks by the old oak." Elena stared at the evidence, knowing any explanation would damn her further. "She's been working with them all along," Joe Martinez snarled. "She's a traitor." As they bound her hands and locked her in jail, Elena felt strange calm. The attack came just after midnight, announced by terrifying war cries. But through her window, she noticed something odd. The buildings being torched were businesses and government structures. Homes with children, the church, the schoolhouse remained untouched. Nahali was keeping his promise. When Sheriff Hayes released her at dawn, his face showed confusion. Strangest raid I ever saw, almost like they knew exactly what to hit and avoid. But her relief was short-lived. Outside, she faced an angry crowd led by Tom Bradley, his rifle pointed at her heart. There she is, the traitor who sold us out. Elena realized her fellow townspeople weren't grateful for their survival. They were looking for someone to blame. And she made the perfect scapegoat. The crowd pressed closer, Tom Bradley's rifle trained on Elena's heart. "You brought this on us," he roared. "Those savages knew exactly where to strike." "The children are safe," Elena said quietly. "Not one child was harmed. Isn't that what matters? Don't try to take credit for luck." Elena felt hopelessness wash over her. Then she heard the soft Apache whistle coming from the church direction. From the shadows emerged Nahali, moving with fluid predator grace that made several women scream. "Release the woman," he said with absolute authority, despite being outnumbered 20-1. "Like hell," Tom Bradley snarled, though his rifle shook. "You got brass showing your face after what your people did." Nahal's dark eyes swept the crowd before settling on Elena's face. What she saw there made her breath catch. Not just concern, but tenderness. "She is under my protection." The words hit like lightning. Sheriff Hayes stepped forward. "Are you admitting she's been working with you?" "I am saying Elena Cartwright showed mercy to my grandfather when your people would have let him die. Honor demands such kindness be repaid." "By helping you raid our town?" demanded Joe Martinez. "Look around you, angry man, count your dead." The challenge hung like smoke. Slowly, reluctantly, the crowd realized what Nahali was pointing out. For an Apache raid, casualties had been impossibly light. "That's impossible," whispered Dr. Morrison. "Apache war parties don't show mercy." "This one did," Nahali said, eyes never leaving Elena's face. "Because of her." The implications rippled through the crowd. Elena felt heat in her cheeks as she realized what they were thinking, that there was something personal between her and this warrior. "You're saying she's been with you?" Martha Wilson's voice dripped scandalized horror. "I am saying she has honor, more than any of you have shown." Elena stared into Nahal's eyes and saw a silent plea. He was offering to shoulder all blame, to protect her even at the cost of painting himself as having somehow seduced a white woman. "No," she said clearly, "there is nothing improper between us. But there is respect and gratitude." He helped minimize damage from a raid that would have happened regardless. "Even if true," Sheriff Hayes said slowly, "meeting secretly with hostiles during wartime is still treason." "Then I am guilty of treason." Elena lifted her chin defiantly. "I chose to trust honor over hatred, and I would make the same choice again." "The debt is paid," Nahal announced suddenly. "But the woman remains under my protection. Any harm to her will be answered." "Is that a threat?" Tom Bradley demanded. "It is a promise." As he melted back into shadows, Elena faced a crowd whose anger had transformed into confusion, grudging respect, and deep unease about the bond they'd witnessed. What none could predict was that Nahali's public protection would soon put Elena in more danger than ever. As news spread throughout the territory and reached men who saw any cooperation with Apaches as unforgivable sin demanding ultimate punishment. 2 weeks passed. Life in Mesilla Creek settled into uneasy normalcy, though Elena's classroom was half empty and some townspeople shunned her completely. Elena was grading papers when she heard the familiar Apache whistle from inside her house. She turned to find Nahali in her kitchen doorway, looking haggard as though he hadn't slept in days. "What's wrong?" she asked. "My niece, the child you helped save, she's in danger again. Not from fever, but from soldiers. A cavalry patrol captured her and other children during a raid. They're being held at Fort Bowie, pending transfer to a reservation school in the east." Elena's blood chilled. She knew about reservation schools where Indian children were stripped of language, culture, identity. Many never saw their families again. "How old is she?" 7 winters. She's small, frightened of strangers. The journey east will kill her spirit, if not her body. Understanding dawned. "What are you asking me to do?" If a respectable white woman claimed the child as an orphan she intended to adopt, If she could provide baptism papers, you want me to lie to the military and claim your niece as my daughter? Yes. Elena stared at this proud warrior, literally begging her to save his family. If they discovered the deception, I'd face federal charges, prison or worse. I know, and I have no right to ask, but she's so small, Elena. So innocent. What would happen if I did this? She would be your adopted daughter legally. I would give up my right to see her if necessary, as long as she was safe. The sacrifice he offered staggered Eleanor. She doesn't speak English. How could I pass her off as an orphan? She's quick to learn, and you're a teacher. The baptism papers would be impossible to forge. Not forge. She was baptized by Father Miguel. He has records. Elena felt walls closing in. Everything was possible, but would require a lifetime of deception. I need to think. There's no time. The transport leaves Fort Bowie in 3 days. We must act tomorrow. Elena looked into his desperate eyes and realized that somewhere between helping his grandfather and accepting his protection, she had begun to love this man in ways that terrified her. I'll need you to tell me everything about her. Hope blazed in his dark eyes. Her name is Ayana, Eternal Blossom. She loves weaving baskets, fears thunderstorms, but not snakes. She laughs like water over stones. As Elena listened to him describe his niece with tender detail, she realized she was about to become not just a liar and lawbreaker, but something more dangerous, a mother willing to do anything to protect her child. The journey to Fort Bowie took Elena through dangerous territory, but she felt strangely calm. In her bag she carried adoption papers Father Miguel had helped create, along with genuine baptism certificates for Ayana Morales, the child's Christian name. Fort Bowie squatted on the desert like a scar. Elena's heart raced as she approached, knowing one mistake could doom them all. Colonel Morrison, a weathered man with kind eyes, received her in his office. Miss Cartwright, your request is unusual. Most whites who adopt Indian children prefer them younger, more malleable. I'm a teacher, Colonel. I'm accustomed to working with children of all ages. What makes you want such responsibility? Eleanor had prepared for this, but realized she was speaking truth. I lost my own daughter to fever last year. I have love to give, and a child needs that love. Something in her voice touched the colonel. I have children myself. I understand that loss. He stood. Would you like to meet her? When they reached the prisoner compound, Eleanor's breath caught. The child was exactly as Nahali described. Tiny for her age, with long black hair and dark eyes, holding too much sorrow. Ayana, the colonel called in Spanish. Someone wants to meet you. The little girl approached cautiously. When she looked at Elena, recognition flickered across her features, followed by hope. Hello, Ayana, Elena said gently. Would you like to come live with me? The child studied Elena with heartbreaking intensity. Then, in halting English, You are the teacher? Uncle said. You help. Eleanor's heart swelled with fierce protective instinct. Yes, sweetheart, I help. The adoption took 2 hours. Every question, every form could expose the deception. But Colonel Morrison seemed genuinely pleased to see a child going to a good home. As they left in the hired wagon, Ayana sat rigidly beside Elena. They traveled in silence until Ayana spoke. Is Uncle safe? She asked in Apache. Elena's limited knowledge caught the meaning. Yes, Uncle is safe. Ayana's eyes widened, then filled with tears of relief. She threw herself into Elena's arms, sobbing with desperate gratitude. As Elena held this precious child, she realized something fundamental had shifted. She was no longer pretending to be Ayana's mother. She had become her mother in every way that mattered. But their peace shattered when their wagon topped a rise, and Elena saw riders blocking the road. White civilians with rifles and grim expressions. Elena's blood turned to ice, recognizing the leader, Jake Thornton, a notorious Indian hater who collected bounties on Apache scalps. Beside him stood Tom Bradley. Well, well, Thornton called, if it isn't the famous Apache lover. And look what she's got, a little savage to raise as her own. Elena pulled Ayana closer. Let us pass. This child is legally adopted. Papers can be forged, Tom Bradley sneered. We know what you've been up to, Elena. Meeting secretly with that Apache buck Nahale. Course that's impossible, Thornton continued with cruel smile. Because that Apache girl was Nahale's niece. And surely a respectable white woman wouldn't steal away an Apache child. Elena realized this was a trap weeks in the making. They had known about her connection to Nahale, watched her every move. Run, she whispered to Ayana in Apache. When I tell you, run toward those rocks." What Elena didn't know was that Nahali had been following at a distance. As he watched men surrounding his beloved niece and the woman who'd risked everything to save her, his warrior heart was making calculations that would turn this desert road into a battleground. The desert crackled with tension as Jake Thornton's men formed a circle around Elena's wagon. Ayanna pressed closer to Elena while her mind raced through impossible escape options. "You know what I think?" Thornton said with lazy predator confidence. "We've got ourselves a genuine Apache-loving traitor, the kind that needs to be made an example of." "She's just a child," Elena said desperately. "Whatever you think I've done, she's innocent." "Apache children grow up to be Apache warriors." Tom Bradley laughed harshly. "You might as well be raising a rattlesnake." Elena felt Ayanna flinch, and fierce maternal rage blazed in her chest. "Touch her and You'll what?" Thornton interrupted, drawing his pistol. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and guilty of treason." "Now!" Elena shouted in Apache, pushing Ayanna toward rocks. "Run!" But Tom Bradley spurred his horse forward, blocking the child's path. "Not so fast, little savage." That's when the desert exploded into chaos. Nahal's war cry split the air like thunder as he appeared on the ridge, his horse plunging down in a controlled avalanche. His rifle spoke twice, and 2 men toppled before anyone could react. "Apache!" someone screamed, and the organized trap became confused melee as men wheeled horses, trying to locate their attacker. Elena threw herself over Ayanna as bullets flew. Through the chaos, she glimpsed Nahale moving like a force of nature, fluid, deadly, unstoppable. "Hold fire!" Thornton bellowed. "We've got the woman and child. Apache, show yourself, or I'll put bullets in both their heads." Nahale's voice drifted from the rocks. "You have something that belongs to me. Let them go and you can ride away. What I've got is a traitor and a savage. What you've got is a death sentence. Perhaps, but how many of your men will die first? You've lost 3 already." Elena saw doubt flicker across surviving faces. They'd signed up for easy money, not death fights with Apache legends. "I'll make a trade," Nahali continued. "My life for theirs. I'll come down unarmed." "No," Elena cried before she could stop herself. "Uncle, no," Ayanna added in Apache. Thornton's eyes narrowed. "Sounds like our Apache friend means something to both of you." Elena felt her heart hammering as she realized their terrible position. Nahali loved his niece enough to die for her, and Elena loved them both more than anything in her life. "There's another option," Elena called out. "Let the child go, keep me, use me to draw him in." "Elena, no." Nahali's voice drifted down, thick with emotion, but Elena was already standing. "You want to make an example? Make it me. But let an innocent child live. You'd die for a savage's brat?" "I'd die for my daughter," Elena replied, realizing the words were completely true. The standoff stretched taut. Then Ayanna surprised everyone by standing in the wagon, raising her small chin with impossible courage. "I am Ayanna, daughter of the Apache," she declared in clear English. "My uncle is Nahale, forest walker, and my new mother is Elena the Kind Heart. You may kill us all, but you cannot kill what we are, a family." Elena felt tears streaming as she looked at this brave child, who'd found courage to define her own identity facing death. Whatever happened next, they had won something precious. Love transcending race, culture, and hatred. But their triumph would be short-lived, because approaching dust clouds meant cavalry patrols drawn by gunfire, racing toward a confrontation that would force impossible choices between safety and love, between the white world that raised her and the Apache world that claimed her heart. Approaching cavalry thunder changed everything. Jake Thornton's face lit with renewed confidence while Elena's heart sank. Military intervention meant official charges, federal courts, family separation. "Looks like the cavalry's coming to save the day," Thornton grinned. "Apache, decide quick. Surrender or face a whole troop." From his position, Nahal could see what others couldn't. This wasn't just any patrol. Leading the riders was Lieutenant James Morrison, Colonel Morrison's son, with battle-hardened soldiers who'd been tracking Thornton's group for days. The soldiers thundered into the confrontation, rifles trained on everyone. Lieutenant Morrison quickly assessed the scene. "Lower your weapons, what's the meaning of this?" "Lieutenant Morrison," Thornton called with false joviality. "Perfect timing. We've captured a known Apache collaborator and recovered a stolen Indian child." But Lieutenant Morrison was staring at Elena with recognition and relief. "Miss Cartwright, thank God you're alive. My father has been worried sick." Elena blinked in surprise. Your father, Colonel Morrison at Fort Bowie. When you didn't arrive home as scheduled, he sent us to find you. His eyes narrowed at Thornton's hostile positioning. These men were supposed to be escorting you safely. This woman is a traitor, Thornton declared. She's been working with Apache, meeting secretly with their warriors. Is that so? Lieutenant Morrison walked directly to Elena's wagon, his manner protective. Miss Cartwright, my father spoke highly of your adoption of the Morales child. He called it one of the most Christian acts he'd witnessed. Elena felt hope spark, but Thornton wasn't finished. That's not Ayanna Morales. That's Nahali's niece. This woman stole her using forged papers. Lieutenant Morrison looked confused. Sir, I saw the adoption papers myself. They were signed by Father Miguel and approved by my father. Nothing forged about them. Then Father Miguel himself rode into view, having followed the soldiers. The elderly priest's weathered face was grim with anger. What is the meaning of this? Why are armed men threatening a woman and child under my protection? Father, that child is Apache, Thornton sputtered. Ayanna Morales, Father Miguel said calmly, is the baptized daughter of Maria Morales and Joseph Running Bear. Maria was half Mexican, half Apache. When cholera took both parents, I contacted Miss Cartwright because I knew her exceptional character could provide a loving home. Elena stared amazed. Every word was technically true. He'd simply never mentioned Joseph Running Bear was Nahali's brother, making Ayanna both legally adoptable and genuinely Nahali's niece. Furthermore, Father Miguel continued sternly, I've ministered to Apache families 15 years. I know Nahali well. He's a man of honor who's never broken treaties or harmed innocent civilians. If he's been protecting this woman and child, it's because they showed kindness when others showed hatred. From the rocks above, Nahali's voice rang clear and strong. Yes, she has. All eyes turned as Nahali emerged from hiding, moving with fluid grace. Elena's breath caught at the magnificent sight. I am Nahali. These men speak truth about meetings between the white woman and myself. Elena's heart sank, thinking he was confessing to collaboration. But his next words stunned everyone. But they lie about the nature of those meetings. I did not meet with Elena Cartwright to plan raids. I met with her because, He paused, his eyes finding Elena's across the desert. Because I love her. The words hung like music. Elena felt tears streaming as Nahali continued. She showed kindness to my grandfather when your people would have let him die. She saved my niece from worse than death. She's risked everything to bridge hatred between our worlds. If loving such a woman makes me criminal, then I am guilty. Lieutenant Morrison looked between Elena and Nahali with growing understanding. And you, Miss Cartwright, what do you say to these charges? Elena stood slowly, Ayanna in her arms looking directly into Nahali's eyes. I say love doesn't recognize boundaries men draw on maps. Family isn't defined by blood, but by willingness to sacrifice for each other. And I say I love this man and this child more than I value my own safety or reputation. Father Miguel smiled broadly. Then perhaps it's time we made this family official in the eyes of both God and man. The priest's suggestion rippled through the crowd like an earthquake. A marriage between white woman and Apache warrior was almost unthinkable, but here stood a priest willing to perform it, and a military officer bound to respect it. You can't be serious, Thornton sputtered. A white woman marrying a savage? A Christian woman marrying a man who's shown more honor than anyone else in this desert, Father Miguel corrected firmly. If they wish it, I would be privileged to unite them. Elena looked at Nahali, heart pounding with possibilities she'd never dared dream. What about your people? Would they accept a white wife? Nahali's smile was like sunrise over mountains. My people judge by actions, not skin color. You've proven yourself worthy of Apache respect. You're already more Apache in heart than many born to our blood. Lieutenant Morrison stepped forward. If this marriage takes place under military witness, with proper documentation, it would give you legal protection under federal law. No state authority could challenge it. Elena felt the weight of choice pressing down like desert sun. She could return to Mesilla Creek, resume her quiet life, try to forget this impossible love, or step forward into unknown future as Apache warrior's wife and his niece's mother. She looked at Ayanna, gazing up with hope and love. She looked at Nahali, who'd risked everything to save them. She looked at Father Miguel, whose smile promised love could conquer hatred dividing worlds. Yes, Elena said, voice clear and strong. "Yes, I will marry you, Nahali Forest Walker. I will be your wife and Ayana's mother, whatever that may cost." As the sun set, painting sky in gold and crimson, Father Miguel performed a ceremony that would be remembered long after all participants joined their ancestors. With Apache traditions woven with Christian vows, with cavalry soldiers as witnesses alongside desert rocks and cottonwood trees, Elena Cartwright became Elena Forest Walker, wife to a warrior and mother to a child born to different world but claimed by love itself. Jake Thornton and his men slipped away during the ceremony, dreams of bounty money replaced by bitter defeat. Tom Bradley would return to Mesilla Creek with a story no one would believe, about a schoolteacher who chose love over safety and found family transcending every boundary their world imposed. Years later, sitting on their adobe home porch, watching Ayana teach her own children to weave baskets, while Nahali carved toys from cottonwood, Elena marveled at the journey that brought them together. It started with simple kindness to an elderly man facing shame and led to love conquering hatred, fear, and artificial divisions between races and cultures. "Do you ever regret it?" Nahale asked one evening, taking her hand as they watched the desert sunset. Eleanor smiled, thinking of all challenges they'd faced and overcome, all narrow minds they'd changed simply by living their love openly. "Never. Love like ours doesn't come with regrets, only gratitude for having found it at all." In the distance, carried on desert wind, came children's laughter, Apache and white children playing together, growing up where love had proven stronger than hatred, where one woman's courage built bridges between peoples, where family was defined not by skin color, but by devotion depth. Elena had saved a native elder from shame, and the next day her fate had indeed been in Apache warrior hands. But that fate wasn't captivity or death. It was love, family, and future, brighter than any desert sunrise. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories of love conquering impossible odds. Tell us in the comments, do you believe true love can overcome any obstacle? Have you ever had to choose between safety and following your heart? Thank you for joining Elena and Nahale on their incredible journey. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is show mercy to the wrong person, but sometimes that mercy is exactly what the world needs to heal.